In tonight's workshop, we're going to be talking about 10 ways pros earn more from the media they make. In other workshops, we've talked about exactly how you can monetize your media in terms of you can write books, you can make movies that you put into distribution, you can make video content that you sell yourself, you can sell your work as content that other creatives use through stock libraries and so forth. And I've got a lot of workshops that cover that content. And some of the workshops are how to sell creative media in 1 hour, Amazon Kindle Select selling thousands of pages a day, which talks about how to profitably publish and talks about how to publish your books on Amazon quickly and cost effectively. There's another workshop called Creating High Quality Merchandise. If you take a look at that workshop, which again is in the chat window, if you take a look at that workshop, it talks about several sites that you can go to in order to create products with no upfront cost that you can make available for sale. Everything from clothing and t-shirts and hats and so forth to cups and saucers and pillowcases, all the way through playing cards, and just like hundreds of different ways to sell your content. And then there's a workshop that talks about places to sell your films, short films, and videos. You want to look at all the different ways that you can easily make money from what you create. Watch those videos because they dive deep. This workshop is higher level in the sense that it's talking about to put yourself in a situation where you can create the kind of content that you want to create profitably, and some of the things that you have to do in order to achieve that objective. And it's a way that pros equip themselves to be able to earn a lot of money by creating media. Hopefully you'll find this a very full-featured solution to the problem of how to make money by monetizing your media. So if you're new to media making, or you've been working for a while, but you can't seem to turn a profit on anything you do, I think this will be an important workshop. You'll learn why media monetization is a critical skill, whether you're a writer, screenwriter, producer, performer, designer, professional comic, and/or an expert selling your opinion, etc. We'll also be talking about how to create new and more profitable relationship with your work and why creating and selling creative work is one of the best investments ever. We'll be talking about new, novel, easy, and immediate ways to translate content or ideas that you have into every kind of revenue. And the supporting workshops that I gave you are going to be very useful in that regard because they provide links to actual services. Many of them you can start using for free and use to immediately start creating stuff to sell. And then how to stop feeling frustrated, fearful, and disappointed by how little you earn from the work that you create. And just a quick tip. When you are talking to investors or banks or distributors or publishers or studio, frankly, what's on their mind most of the time is monetization. When you're talking to people that are looking at you from a business perspective, you're really motivated by ideas, and you're really motivated by creating, and you're really motivated by the message that you're putting out into the world and the way that you want to see the world change. Those things are important to you. That's why you do media for a living. These other folks, they do something else for a living. And for example, they like to make the amount of money they earn go up every year. So their focus is different. And when they're looking at you from an investment standpoint or from a funding standpoint, they're thinking about how well is this media going to monetize? How easy is it going to be to turn this media into money? I think one reason this workshop is important is because it helps you see how to turn yourself into the kind of person and create and turn yourself into the kind of person who can create the kind of work that you can sell more profitably. And it helps you see your work and your creative life in a different and more positive way. So a starting point, I think that it's important to consider is that because most of us come from a sort of somewhat artistic background, and because for the most of our lives, we've been creating content on the basis of we do what we care about. We do want to change the world. We do want to make the world a better place. We do want to share something that we've seen or something we've felt or something we've done. We think of our work from the inside out. But the content that you create is property, just like real estate, and you can use it to make money in a variety of ways. You can sell its copyright and your interest in it, all of it, to someone else to exploit. So it can be the case that you create content and you just sell it off lock, stock, and barrel to somebody else, and they can do whatever they want to with it. Alternatively, you can sell access to copies of your work for people to read or watch. In the old days, you write a book and you basically sell it to a publisher and you'd get like a little royalty from whatever they made. In effect, you were selling your copyright to them. And if you decided to self-publish, then you were selling access to copies of your work to the general public. And you can still do that today. In fact, that's the way most writers publish these days. You can license some or all of the rights you have to your content to others to use in their creative works. That's like stock libraries and so forth. You can use your person and your marketing skills and your trademarks and your service marks and your content to create a brand that you can license to sell to others. Kind of the people that run the Coca-Cola company are incredibly good at selling their brand. You can buy Coke, the Coke logo and a Coke brand on clothing. You can buy it on cups and saucers and dishes and blankets and almost every other place you can possibly put a logo. And that's because they've created such a strong, quote unquote, all-American brand. You can make the same case about Marvel. You can make the same case about DC Comics. They've created not just a specific kind of content, but a whole brand, a whole collection of experiences that are all bundled together that people see as a body of work that they want to be associated with, that they want to make part of their life. Star Trek being another example. Star Trek and Star Wars, people have built their whole lives around those brands because they feel so strongly about the ideas that they evince. Finally, you can sell your time to create content for other people to exploit on a work-for-hire agreement. In effect, what you're doing is you're giving them content that they can own and sell. So when somebody hires you as a creative to create something for them, and it's a work-for-hire deal, in effect, what they're doing is they're buying literally your capacity to create something that people want. The difference between a lot of us that work in the entertainment industry and don't see a lot of success and those that do see a lot of success is that creative pros know what they can sell. They have a good understanding of themselves and their skills and the products that they create, and they're really good at turning them into stuff that can sell. And they think of their work in that way. They do think about it from the inside out, but they also think about it from the outside in terms of how am I of value? How is my work of value? How is what I do different than what other people do? And that's something that takes practice and it takes skill. And we're going to be talking about some of the things you need to do in order to start thinking of yourself and your work in that way. Cool. The next thing I just want to briefly mention is that in order to sell anything, you have to own it. So many creative professionals really struggle with the concept of going to the copyright site and registering their work. You really do have to register your books, your screenplays, your films, your animations, your drawings, your designs, and other intellectual property you create at the Copyright Office so you can say that you own it. It's very important because if you don't do that, it can easily be taken away from you and you really don't have a lot of recourse. Having said that, I'm not a lawyer, but I think if you do research into copyright, one of the things that you'll learn is that the second that you capture something into a tangible media, you create something, yourself personally create something, and you put it on paper and it's entirely new because you created it. The copyright, you have a copyright on it. In effect, you can sell it, but people can come along later and say, wait, I created that. And then it could be the case they take you to court and you have to prove that you created it and you haven't registered the Copyright Office after you created it. So you get in a position where you have to do crazy things to prove you own it. Alternatively, and what can be really terrible is when they take your work that's not copyrighted and they take it to the Copyright Office and they register it. And that's one of the reasons why you should register your copyright on your screenplays and your books and so forth before you share them with editors or with people that are going to be giving you notes, because you want to make sure that if it should ever come up, you can prove that you actually owned it and that your copyright registration is in place. And you do get additional rights if you register work at the Copyright Office. And we have a whole workshop that covers copyright, and you should take a look at it. It's run by an attorney. It's available on the site at nfm24.com. But important thing is you need to learn how to copyright your work, and you need to know why copyright is important, because it is the major protection that you have for what you create. And smart creative pros understand that. They understand how important that is. They also understand the value of a trademark. If you're going to be creating merchandise like t-shirts or toys or other kinds of products, or other kinds of specific services or methodologies that you use in your training or in your consulting, etc. You can create trademarks or service marks or packaging elements that identify your work so that people can identify it as a glance as being your work. And if kind of like Coca-Cola, if you see that brand, you know what it stands for, what a Coke's going to taste like, specifically because you know what the Coca-Cola brand means. It's so much so that if you see a can of Coke, or even a photo of a can of Coke, you know what it's going to taste like. The thing is that over time, if you create a trademark or you create a service mark, people really come to trust anything that mark is on if you've provided them good service over a long period of time. And those trademarks and branding elements can be really important because they can be something that you can sell, and they can be something that over time easily gathers more and more people for you. For example, Lucasfilms, because the Star Wars was so good, and Lucas was associated with so many great products and so many great special effects, the Lucasfilms trademarks became very valuable because people just honest to God believe this guy's a leader in the field and anything he puts out has to be good. So people that are creating creative people that are going to be creating products and services, especially if they're going to be creating a lot of products in the same vein, will come up with trademarks and service marks, and they will register them with the help of an attorney, and they will make sure that they can identify their work with this unique brand, such that anything they put that brand on, their followers and their fans will instantly identify and know that they should buy. I do think it's very important for you to register your domain name, to create a domain name. It doesn't cost that much. It's really relatively easy to do using Wix or a whole bunch of these turnkey sites. And we have workshops that cover how to create a website in about an hour. I think that it's an important thing to do because your website can become a critical component in your branding. It's how people can find you, and they can always find out what you're working on. And even though you're going to have a huge social media presence, by and large, you'll probably end up having a few social media accounts and maybe even Facebook pages and so forth. Your own domain name is different. You can put anything on it and you can completely control its appearance. If you haven't created a website for yourself, I strongly urge you to go check out the workshop on how to create a website in about an hour. It's one of the most important workshops I offer because a domain name can be so important to your business, and because it covers how to create a domain name very quickly, how to create a website on a particular custom domain name very quickly, very cost effectively, and how to update it without having to hire anybody to help you. Trade secrets are important. So another way that people protect their intellectual property is by not telling anybody their secrets. So if you happen to be really good at writing quickly and you have a series of things that you do that make it so you can write more quickly than anybody else, or you can accept notes and interpret them better than anybody else, or if you have a methodology for creating designs like costume designs, etc. If you have ways of doing things that you don't share with other people because they're very quick and very fast and very efficient, or they give your work a very specific stylistic look that people really like, that's a trade secret. And one of the cool things is that I think a lot of creative professionals that are really good at something, they do have trade secrets. Over time, they find different they do things differently than other people, and they do them much differently, and they're much more efficient. And because of that, they are great competitors. They find it much easier to get business than other people. And I'm sure that you have a lot of things that you're really good at, and those things are based upon specific techniques that you can do better than anybody else. Those trade secrets that you have turn out to be very important to your creative career. And you should be talking about why you should focus on that kind of thing and pay close attention to it so that you can always play to your strengths. So I'm going to start going through my top 10 ways that I think you can ensure that you earn significantly more from your work. And I want to mention, once again, you have 4 other workshops that you can watch that dive deep into the details of how you can profitably publish books, how you can sell your films, how you can create merchandise of every single kind, from board games to pillowcases to wallpaper to podcasts, in the chat notes that are linked to this document. So you should go ahead and go check that out, or read the links are in the email that let you know how to sign up for this event. But the tips we're going to be talking about now are the bigger picture, and they talk about what successful creative pros do differently. And we'll talk about why that makes them much more successful from a financial standpoint. So the first thing I want to talk about is, number one, your ideas have value. And whether you're a writer or an actor or a director or a designer or expert selling your skills, your ideas matter. Media pros who earn a lot have a lot of great ideas, and they bring them to every single table they sit at. It's their good ideas that keep them employed and keep them self-employed and keep them earning. They use those ideas to create books and films and performances and merchandise, and they use their well-developed insights and ideas in conversations and pitches and collaborations. I think if you're a creative professional and you're not being successful, you're discarding a lot of your best ideas because you're not keeping track of them. And that translates into you not having a pool of ideas, good ideas that you can exploit at any given moment. I strongly urge you, first, to keep track of your ideas. I strongly urge you to keep a diary or keep a notebook, or on your phone, create a document and start keeping track of your ideas. And I'm sure over the course of a week, you probably have 20 or 30 or 40 ideas to ways to earn money, things that you think would be cool, all kinds of ideas for things that you could do to make a living. I strongly urge you to start keeping track of those ideas. The best juggler in the world can only juggle 7 balls at a time. You may think to yourself, I don't really have that many great ideas. You can't remember them all. That's the problem. The problem is nobody can remember all of their ideas. But if you actually put them in a spreadsheet or put them in a document and just keep adding to that document, and whenever you get, if you come up with a second idea that's related to another idea you have, if you go and add your new idea next to the original idea, over time, you'll be shocked at the quality of the ideas that you have, their sophistication, their ease of execution. Your ideas are really important, and you're really squandering them if you're not writing them down. That's a key difference. They talk about journaling. That's one of the key things you put in a journal, is your ideas. And the fact that you can look back at them at any given time is just critically important if you want to be able to earn a lot from your work. Second thing is, keep track of ideas you wish you'd had. When you see something you wish you had created, or a product or a product that you wish you had created, or a market that you wish you could serve because you really like the people that are in it, write that down and write down exactly what you like about it. Now, sometimes people don't do this because they fear it will be plagiarism. They go, I don't want to steal somebody else's work. You're not stealing their work. You're recognizing something that you want. If I say, I really like Picasso's paintings because he takes very complex ideas and turns them into two-dimensional images, and he somehow or other manages to convey who a person is without drawing a picture of them, but drawing what they look like in effect on the inside, or his perception of them. I'm not harming Picasso. Picasso is just fine. And even if I were to create work based upon the same kinds of ideas, even trying to use some of the same techniques, I'm not going to be able to duplicate what he did, because I'm a different person and I have a different way of thinking about people. Your art will be different than other people's art, even if you let other people's art inspire you. Keep track of ideas you'd wish you had. Next thing is, consciously go where you get ideas and motivation. I think the hardest thing for any creative who wants to monetize their work is coming up with a great idea that people love, that's easy for them to execute. You need to really consciously find an energetic environment where those kinds of ideas come to you frequently. And it can, for some people, when they walk by the beach, or they go to the park, or they go to nature, their head just fills with a million ideas. For some people, they go to conferences, or they go to films, or they go to concerts, or they go to sing in the church choir. We all go to places that inspire us somehow and trigger us on a very deep, unconscious level. And we leave those locations feeling energized and happy and full of ideas. You need to consciously make that part of your week, and you need to consciously keep track of the ideas as you have as a result. A lot of us that are not successful from a creative standpoint have a tendency to hunker down and stay in our house, not go anywhere and not do anything, not allow ourselves any relief. And the problem is that stultifies our ability to come up with ideas. That is not a way to be successful. The next thing, number 2, shall we say, look for easy partners. As you're going through the world and you're thinking about things that you might want to do, and you're having ideas about things you'd wish you'd done, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, consciously keep your eyes open for easy partners. You every single day, just like you're looking for paper that you might want to use, or content for, or topics that you might want to put in a documentary, or topics that you might want to incorporate in a book or whatever. Consciously keep your eyes open for partners that are easy to work with, that don't cost a lot to work with, that'll let you do things that would be previously impossible. Do you know what skills the people around you have? Are you actively thinking about what things people do well? Are you paying attention to when people struggle around you that you might be working with at some point in the future, or that you might be able to work with in a short-term way? Are you paying attention to those folks? Are you looking out at them? Because they can be some of your most important assets and resources, and you can help them as much as they help you. Successful media pros create opportunities for themselves and others through their connections. If you're not consciously looking out and not consciously looking for people to work with, then you're making it harder for yourself to be successful, because you're not giving yourself any support. Number 1, this is very important. Track services that you can use to sell and create. Even if you don't think you're going to ever want to write a book, you should still know about kdp.amazon.com. Even if you don't think you'll ever want to make a t-shirt, you should know about Zazzle, because someday you might, or somebody else you know that you want to work with might. If you don't know that you can put a movie, even if you don't want to make a movie available right now, iTunes, Indie Rights, Film Hub, Uscreen, Gumroad, all of these places are places that let you sell your content. And you need to know about them, and you need to consciously keep a record of these things, so you can think, just in case you need that resource, you have it to hand. And then just in case somebody you run into that you like, that you want to support, needs those things, you want to be able to say, hey, have you heard about this? Have you checked this out? Transistor FM, that's great if you want to be able to do podcasts. Spoonflower.com if you want to make murals or backdrops or fabric, everything from pillowcases to costume material. Lulu.com if you want to be able to publish books or journals and so forth very easily. Uprinting, it's here in town. You can do everything from banners to just a million different kinds of products. It is like a very fast printing solution for creating almost anything you could possibly want to print at low cost and small, medium, and large quantities. Canva.com lets you publish a website, lets you create videos, edit videos, create social media content. All of these tools let you turn thoughts into things. Media pros that monetize well look for key solutions with low, easy to understand costs. These are tools in their arsenal. So keep track of the services that you can use to create and sell. Consciously keep track of people around you who get things done. Pay attention to the people around you and the work that they're getting done, and what they are good at and what they are not so good at. And consciously see them as resources that you can work with on networking projects. Even just let's say you're working in a community of actors, and you may notice, you know what, this guy and this guy, my gosh, they're just like, they're constantly out and about. They're constantly networking all of the time. Those guys are great networkers. I should reach out to them and I should say, hey, how can we work together on some networking stuff? Why? Because you're not going to make them worse at networking. Maybe you can help offer them a location, or maybe you can offer them a little bit of funding, or maybe you can promote something that they're doing to your mailing list, etc. There's a bunch of different ways that you can help them, and in return, they may be able to help you. So the point is, see people as a resource and consciously think about the different ways you can work with them. And you don't have to work with people just in terms of them paying you or you paying them. It could be the case that you collaborate on things like marketing or on PR or on sales. You don't have to work on production or stuff where you have to get financially entwined. Media success is a lot about doing little deals all the time. Finally, pay attention to who brings out the best in you. Motivation is really key for getting a lot of things done. And for most creative pros, just media pros specifically, the right collaborations and cohorts and friends and network create the mental and economic environment required for success. There's a saying that your network is your net worth. So I don't really think it makes sense, and I don't really like the idea of choosing my friends based upon whether or not they're wealthy or poor. But I will say that I do think it's important to choose friends and cohorts that strengthen you. And if you want to be a creative professional, it really does help if they have a creative background as well, or at least have a bunch of them that have a creative background, because they can share your pain and they can share your joy, they can share your ideas, and they can strengthen you when you're having a tough time. They can also give you advice that's industry appropriate when you want to field thoughts about things you might want to do in the future. Number 3, experiment and test. Successful media pros are engaged in experimenting all the time. They try new networking events, new media projects, new audiences, new distribution strategies. They're constantly experimenting. And they reduce risk and they maximize the probability of their long-term success through theorizing and experimenting and iterating. So, experimenting. Try creating a cartoon using tools like a character animator or DAZ. Try shooting a short film on your iPhone. Try creating a podcast episode. It's so much easier just to try stuff. Spend a tiny little bit of money, experiment a little bit, and then see whether or not it's easy, see whether or not it's hard. The reason that's important is because it's much better than guessing whether or not something's going to work, or guessing whether or not you're going to be able to do something. Spend way less time guessing and a lot more time testing. That is a key difference between creative pros that are earning money and being successful from a financial standpoint and those that aren't. From a wide variety of perspectives, if you don't experiment, most of the time you're living your life based upon your fears rather than what's actually accurate about the world, what's actually easy, what's actually difficult, what's actually hard. You're basically deciding, I'm not even going to try that because I know that it's hard. Second, forget failure. You, honest to God, cannot master new media skills, find audiences, or develop new productive relationships without experimenting. That inherently entails failure. Occasional success, occasional failure, sometimes more of one, sometimes more of the other. Remember successes. Learn from your failures and skip brooding on what didn't work out as planned. One of the things that's interesting is how many unsuccessful creative pros beat themselves up whenever something doesn't work out. They don't see it as a cost of doing business. They don't see it as a Picasso, or let's actually use Michelangelo. Michelangelo didn't paint the Sistine Chapel ceiling without doing a whole bunch of sketches. You're not going to be able to create your great work without doing a whole bunch of sketches. You can't consider the sketches failures. Yeah, maybe you decide to sketch somebody and it doesn't look at all good. You get the proportions all wrong. That's just one sketch in a million. Maybe you try to create a podcast. It doesn't work out. Okay, it's one mistake in a million. But you learn something from it. You move on, go on to the next thing. Don't brood on failure, because that makes it so you don't want to try anything new going forward, and you can't be successful without trying something new. 3, iterate. Think in terms of drafts. Create some media, punch it into the market, see what people think, do it again. When something works, you can do it again and again, better and better. It's the iteration of things that work and that you enjoy doing that gives you the opportunity to be successful doing things that you love. Think small to start. Thinking small lets you comfortably get media out the door and lets you see what works. There's literally no reason at all to bet the farm on any new media business idea. There's no reason ever to bet the farm. Thinking small reduces your risk, your cost, and your stress, both in the short and the long term. Little is good. Investing a lot in new kind of media or a new media idea can take a big opportunity and make it a big mistake. Look for ways to do something cheap and small and fast so you can see if it's worth doing better and for more. 2, clear terms. Working with turnkey services like kdp.amazon.com or Amazon Prime Direct, etc., gives you clear terms and sidesteps hassles about who owns what. When you're using those services that I talked about previously, or some of the ones that are recommended in those 4 videos that I suggested you review, those services do not take ownership of the work. You continue to own the intellectual property. They're just using them to distribute it. That is a key thing to do from a variety of perspectives, because it protects your work. It's just critical for you to protect your work. And one of the easiest way to do that is to work with these turnkey services that say that you would retain ownership of the intellectual property. If you're going to work with other people, you absolutely do need to have a contract. Which brings us to topic 3. Partnership is usually a bad word. In fact, it's almost always a bad word. You should probably never put the word partner in a sentence. Successful media creatives might work together on a project with a clear agreement that documents their relationship, employee, employer, etc. But generally, they shy away from ill-defined long-term partnerships because the litigation that can result harms both their content and their future income and opportunities. Do not use the word partner. Do not say that you're partnering with people. The word partner has a legal meaning, and you should probably look into that and talk to a lawyer before you use the term, so you understand what it means when you go around town telling people that you're partners on a particular project. You don't need to be partners with people. Generally speaking, if you were working, I don't actually work. I don't use the events that I run in order to find people in order to do collaborations with, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's not my objective in doing the events. But when I do work with people, I don't ever create a partnership with them. Usually they're either the employer or I'm the employer. And the reason that's the case is because somebody's got to be in charge. Somebody has to run the show. Somebody has to be accountable to making the project go forward. And the one that runs the show owns the project, and he can tell the other person, I don't want to work with you anymore. And I really don't mind being either of those people. I don't mind running the show, and I don't mind being the guy that can get fired and walk away from something that's not working. I mean, I'm happy on either side of that equation, but it can be extremely expensive and extremely toxic. And it's not a relationship that I'm comfortable with, because in a sense that can mean I can't walk away and I can't control the situation. Most of the creative professionals I know who are very successful consciously avoid creating sort of peer-to-peer relationships where no one's in charge. And because the ability to enforce accountability is almost no. It's my opinion, and it seems to be what I observe. Something you can decide on your own, but I strongly feel that it's dangerous to create partnerships. And I think creative professionals, media pros who are new or inexperienced tend to try to create partnerships because they want to be fair. There's a workshop that talks about creating media with friends, and it talks specifically about what makes people great friends might make them really terrible partners. You might want to check that out if you're thinking about creating a partnership with friends. Cool. The next thing, know your brand. You have to know who you are. What do you actually enjoy doing? What do you demonstrably do well? What kind of people bring out the best and worst in you? How do people describe you? I think one of the cool things about the fact that I run a group where most of the people who are in the group are seasoned, intelligent people who are fairly entrepreneurial from a variety of perspectives, have had success in several walks of life, is that they do have kind of a better understanding of themselves than most other people do. I'm sure we all know people who, if you were to talk to them and you would say, so what kind of person are you? They go, I'm really easygoing, and I really like to work hard, and I'm very disciplined. And they just list all these characteristics, and you're sitting there thinking, you are literally none of those things. There's a lot of good things about you. None of those things you listed are them. Because when we come to this planet, we're presented to our parents, little beings that we are, and they tell us who we are. They say, you're shy, or you're a good dancer, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They tell us who we are, and we love them, and we think they love us. And so we try to be what they say we are. And it can take us 30 years, 40 years to realize I am not shy. Why do you, I'm not the least bit shy. Who told me that? And why did they say it? Or I was shy maybe when I was little, but I'm certainly not now. If you're inaccurate in your understanding of yourself, and you don't know what other people think about you, and you don't know what other people like about you, and you don't know what other people struggle with when they're working with you, you have a problem because you don't know how you're presenting to the marketplace. So consciously think about who you are, and check to confirm that you're right about what you think about yourself by seeing how people respond to you, and by consciously probing. So what do you think I'm good at? Or what do you really like about me? Or what do you really hate about me? Talk to your friends and encourage them to be honest with you. Talk to the creative partners that you've worked with in the past. Say, what was great about working with me? What totally sucked? What could I do better? If you have clients and you get to know them, ask them, what am I great at? What am I terrible at? What shouldn't I do? What should I do? Take that feedback so you get to know who you are, what you're great at, what people innately love about you just because they love that about you, because it's really helpful. It means that you're not going into the marketplace with a crazy idea of who you are. It's one of the reasons I think so many creative professionals who are successful go to therapy, because over the course of their lives, they notice that they don't know who they are. And they may think that, wow, I really enjoy acting. I'm really good at acting. I can't live without acting. But then they realize over time, God, acting really stresses me out. And I feel judged all the time. And they get crazy. And at some point they realize I can't do my job unless I get my head straight about some aspects of this business. So I'm going to go get help from a professional so I can be a better version of who I am. Second thing is, think about what defines your media. You can't be all things to all people, and your media can't be all things to all people either. What is the genre that you're the best at? What does your audience love about your work? What about your work connects you to your audience? Think consciously understanding what works and what doesn't work and why it's working, how it's hooking people is really a critical aspect of being successful. It gives you the ability to over and over and over again be successful because you know what works in the content that you create. And on a regular basis, I've seen people stumble across something that's good. They're up and coming, or they've been working for a long time and they stumble across something that works, and they have unprecedented success, and then or a really good response, but they don't know what happened. And they try to chase that experience over and over again. But because they don't understand what made it work, they can't replicate it. So when you have some success, or if you've had success in the past, you really do have to figure out what made it work. Not from an internal inside out perspective, but from the audience's standpoint in. You have to figure out what about the audience is tying them to the work. What did they find charming about it? Which ties into the next topic, is what defines your audience. Over the course of running these events over the last, I guess I've been doing it since 2015, I really realized that my folks tend to be people who, I call them gearheads, which is to say that the kind of folks that really like my events are the kind of people who like to know how things work. They are interested in being able to create things and sell things and produce things. I don't want to say that they are not visionary or imaginative, because they are actually often all those things, but they are practical. And I've realized that's what ties me to them. We have that sense of I can figure this out and I can make this work and I can get what I want because I can understand things. And I've also realized they're probably not the 18 or 19-year-old, 20-year-olds who are just breaking into the industry. A lot of times they're people who have been in the industry for a while who are making a pivot, or they are people who have had success in another industry and who are they may have had a successful life as a lawyer, but now they want to be able to create media for a living, and so they need to learn a new game. Because I know my audience, I have a good idea of what they want, and I have a good idea of what to create. So you need to understand your audience that you innately serve, that you most naturally and comfortably serve. Are they Gen X women who like ghost story mysteries? Are they science nerds from 30 to 90 who love mystical physics like quantum entanglement and so forth? Figuring out who those guys are matters, because you can use that information to create ads and social media and posts and so forth to gather them to you. It lets you know what kind of bait to put into the water, because you know what kind of fish you're trying to catch. The next topic is near and dear to my heart. And it took me a long time to learn this lesson, and I sometimes think I haven't learned it yet. But reduce stress. One of the key factors to being successful as a media creative is being healthy and being proactive and being open to opportunity. You honestly cannot do that if you're stressed out all the time. So you have to very consciously think about keeping your stress to a minimum, and you have to focus on picking and choosing when and how you invest yourself in projects. High stress does not translate in long term to personal, professional, or financial success. That is why you're going to do small deals first, always. Always start small when you're thinking of working with new people or when you're exploiting new opportunities. Create deals that you can walk away from without difficulty. That's why you're doing testing. That's why you're doing experimenting, because you want to be able to do something you can walk away from without any kind of significant financial or personal harm, and because you can explore that stuff without getting stressed out, frustrated, and so forth. Do work out, do get physicals. Bad health translates into an inability to think clearly, to do your best work, and to enjoy your success. Your health is a seriously important asset. People do get sick, they get cancer, they get diabetes, all kinds of things. But if you catch those things early, the impact of those health issues can be hopefully minimized. And I say that as somebody who has had cancer. I say that as somebody who was borderline diabetic, type 2 diabetic. I say that as somebody who doesn't get nearly as much exercise as she probably ought to get. But even that, I try really hard to make sure that I do get exercise literally every single day. And I try very hard to make sure that I get physicals every single year, and to follow up. When they had to say follow-up visits, I go. Because what I have noticed is the people that are most successful in this industry, and as media creatives and as creative professionals generally, the ones that are the happiest are the ones that are healthiest, and the ones who deal with their health issues and keep their stress to a minimum day in and day out. They're very disciplined about it, and it translates into them having more opportunities and living long enough to see a lot of investments they make early pay off in the long run. Finally, mental health care is healthcare. When you're working as a media pro, you face a lot of stresses that people in other industries don't. You are taking risks all the time. You're putting yourself and your work in the public eye, which often leads to odd behavior by other people. You're often the source of your art comes from your life. So you have to come face to face with issues that you might otherwise just get to avoid thinking about. Many of us get a lot of our ideas from trauma that we've had in the past, experiences that we've had in the past, and creating content causes us to relive those stressful or traumatic events. A good therapist may be a very smart investment. And the only thing I'd recommend when you're getting therapy is make sure that you shop for a good fit, and that you find somebody who you really hit it off with, and that helps you keep moving forward in a direction that you want to go. It's sometimes people think, they think that one therapist is just as good as another. That is not my experience. A good fit is a magical thing, and a bad fit just makes life miserable. The next thing is know your money options. Media pros, as creatives, often think that playing the money game and being good at money-related issues like investment and taxes and accounting is highly uncreative. Many of us have been told our entire lives that the smart thing to do is to give up our media and do something sensible because we'll earn more. And so we're wary about thinking about money. But that insanity really holds us back. Money is just another resource we can use, and we can get it from a lot of places. One specific thing that I think is a truly dangerous idea is, and it's a very common statement, you'll hear it all over the industry over and over again. So I'll say, don't put your money into your own projects. Yes, put your money into your own projects. Do put money into your projects. There's this crazy saying, never invest in your own media. And it comes from the idea that your projects should be good enough that other people will want to fund it or buy it. And that's true. But in the early days of a project, you need to be able to experiment and test ideas. And that actually does take a little bit of cash. So spending tiny little bits of money is not a bad thing. It's a good investment for you to copyright your work at the Copyright Office. There are a lot of little expenses that are good investments. Making sure that you have a computer that you can use can be a pretty critical investment. And a lot of times people's computers will break, or they'll be living with a rotten computer for like months and months, and living with all kinds of stress because they don't have a working computer. It's really much better to solve that problem and spend a little money so you can get the equipment that you need to do what you love. And I mentioned in passing, if you do ever have that problem, go to Amazon and look for refurbished Mac computers, because you can get them very cost effectively, and they will be a source of joy in your life. Like you can spend $200 or $300 and get a good Mac. You spend as much as $500, you can get a MacBook, which is a great thing. The next thing is, do understand investment, pre-sales, donations, and gifts. The best way to fund something is for the customers that want it to give you the money to create it, pre-sales. That's really the best possible way to fund something. And that's actually what Kickstarter is. It's also what every single play is, right? You sell the tickets to a play and then you actually produce the play. The play doesn't exist when they're paying you, right? So in effect, every time you go to a theater performance, the people selling the tickets are getting pre-sales, and that is smart business. You can also get gifts from family and friends, which may turn out to be expensive in other ways, but you need to know it's a gift. Donations, which are tax deductible, are harder to get and usually come with a lot of strings attached. Sometimes I hear people say, I'm going to start a nonprofit, as if that's going to be an easier way for them to fund their projects. This is not my experience. A nonprofit has a whole bunch of rules it has to obey in order to be able to take donations, and a whole bunch of oversight that they are subject to. Be aware of the difference between Kickstarter pre-sales, etc., gifts, and donations, because they are 3 different things. And finally, investment. That's money in exchange for a future return that you're offering to investors. That it absolutely involves lawyers. You cannot take investment without talking to lawyers, because there's laws that govern offering people a return on their investment. Do understand debt. Debt, particularly debt that you must personally pay back at high interest rates like credit card debt, is a very dangerous financial tool when the amounts are large. Debt owned by a business that goes away if the business goes away because it's not personally secured is slightly better. It's harder and harder to get that kind of credit. It is possible, but it's harder than it used to be. You need to know the difference between consumer credit, like the 23% interest rate credit cards, and personal loans, business loans, and SBA loans. And if you don't know the difference, it's worth doing some Googling to learn the difference between those financial tools. And finally, I'll just mention hundreds of millions of people have used the SBA to fund their business. A lot of people have no idea what the SBA does. One of the things that I think is interesting is that the SBA will help you buy a company that already has customers. So let's say that you really enjoy doing theatrical productions, you really enjoy putting on networking events, and you really enjoy teaching classes. It might be possible for you to purchase a theater, which will give you all of the things that you want and very cost effectively. And the SBA can help you buy a theater. So if you know a theater that's been running for 2 years, that's actually generating revenue, you can get an SBA loan to buy that. And you don't have to have perfect credit in order to do it. And not only that, you can have investors come in and help you cover the down payment for that business that you're going to buy. And you can pay them a return on the money that they're giving you. And that's all totally legitimate with the SBA. My point is, people use the SBA to buy dry cleaners. People use the SBA to buy sandwich shops and Taco Bell franchises. Like, the SBA is a monster for giving away money, and they do it all of the time. And if you're a vet, they have special programs for women-owned businesses and for vets and for all kinds of other things. And it's just important for you to know, from a financial standpoint, all the ways you can get money to do the things that you want to do cost effectively, and to not be afraid of those discussions, because successful creatives aren't afraid of those discussions. Know your competitors. I think one of the most dangerous and self-defeating things you can possibly say is, I have no competitors. If the world has gotten to this point without whatever it is you have to offer, it is because no one wants what you have to offer. So you do have competitors. If you're any kind of good at what you do, any kind of successful, you have competitors. So what you want to do is offer media that you can prove people want. And one of the ways you're going to prove people want it is because there are competitors. And you want to prove that you have a solid, profitable niche in an existing market. So consciously look around. Who creates content like me? Who around town, or who in the country, or who in the world is creating content like mine, creating media like mine, it has a business like mine? And how have they been doing in the market? And how do they make money? And what do they offer people? If you're a comic like Seinfeld, where does Seinfeld do his act, right? Where are all the comics that are successful that I like? Where are they working? Maybe I should be thinking about how to work there. What does it take to work with get gigs at that place? If you're a documentary filmmaker, what docs are like mine that are getting made? And how are they are they doing well? And where are they selling? Where are they being played? Are they going to theaters? Because anything I create would be in those theaters as well. You can use your competitors to figure out what you should be doing. In effect, they're road testing the world for you. Next, what makes your content better? Look at 10 to 20 competitors for any project you're thinking about doing or any planned project. If you really are thinking strongly about going forward with after you've done experimenting and testing, and see what's great about those competitors and what's great about that content and what makes that content excellent. And then what's going to make your content even better? Why is yours even better than what they're offering? This helps you capitalize on what others have learned, and it helps you improve your product so that folks will actually like it better. It also gives you a way when you're marketing your work to be able to say, hey, it's got this and this, and it's got this other thing that something you already love doesn't have. Finally, start talking to your competitor's audience. You can start chatting with your audience even before your media project's out the door by knowing who your competitors are. This lets you start engaging them on Facebook and on Twitter, etc. You can ask them what they like and why. You can ask them what they hate and why. And you can explore where they come from, how they found the product that they've fallen in love with, how they like being communicated with. Your competitors are part of a community, all of them taken together. And that community cares about a specific kind of content or specific kind of media that you're interested in creating. Join that community, be a part of that community, because what that translates into is you learning from the people who are going to buy your work what they want to buy. Leverage your strengths. Most of us are media creators because we have specific strengths, writing speed or a strong background in a specific genre, or the ability to create characters quickly, or the ability to portray characters well, the ability to teach, the ability to speak, the ability to evangelize, the ability to persuade, the ability to terrorize. We have had that capacity since early on, and we've always leveraged it to our advantage. We might have been the kid in class who could always get a laugh because we're great at creating caricatures. Play to that advantage, because that's your preferred battleground. Strengthen your talent with craft. You know that you're good at what you're good at because you've been living for a while, and you might know how to get a laugh. You know that you can move people to tears. You have strengths, and you put them to the test. Learn how to get even better doing what you do. They call that craft. The talent is something that you're born with. It's a magic capacity that you have naturally. If you hone your talent by mastering a craft, by mastering the craft of doing what you do, by learning from other people that do it who are also really good at it, that translates into something that makes you unstoppable. Know your weaknesses. You're not going to be great at everything. You can get passably good at things, though, like money or running a business or business fundamentals, etc., hiring and firing. Figure out what you're great at, figure out what you're not so good at, and look for people that you can work with affordably or services that you can hire affordably to shore up your weaknesses. You cannot completely avoid dealing with things you are bad at, but you can really get good at hiring people or hiring services or finding solutions that mean you don't have to handle it, but it will still get handled. Finally, keep in fighting trim. One of the things that's interesting in the entertainment industry is actors. I have nothing but respect for those folks, because actors, they're constantly practicing their craft. I've been shocked and astonished by the workshops, the auditions, the scene study, and they do all this stuff just to get ready to work and to stay ready to work. And it's interesting because writers and producers and other folks, especially new ones or people who are moving into new industries or new media makers, they tend to invest less, and it makes them really less able to do media on demand. They're just not agile because they're not kind of practicing all the time. And that's really problematic if you want to make making media. You really need to be ready to work always. So take a leaf from actors' books and consciously expose yourself to the kind of training that you need to do great, to master your craft, to do better, to master new skills, to energize you, because it translates into you being able to work and ready to work all day, every day. And that's something that is not going to happen by accident. Finally, passion. Ultimately, creating media requires us to keep our heads and our hearts in the game long enough to get complex information captured and sold to an audience. And sometimes that can take hours. Sometimes that can take weeks. Occasionally, that can take years. Although a single movie or documentary usually shouldn't take that long. And getting a series onto a big streamer is really a battle. It's when people tell me they want to do a television series and they want to get it to Netflix, I was just thinking, oh my God, okay, that's 10 years of your life. That's going to take you a while. I know people that have huge credits that have pitched Netflix and haven't really had much come out of it. Doesn't mean that it can happen. It's just, even if it's not just Netflix you have to pitch, there's usually a whole bunch of intermediaries, there's a whole bunch of partners you have to put together, there's named talent, there's showrunners, it's just a big package. And putting all those pieces together isn't a matter of a few weeks or a few months. It tends to be many months and maybe many longer number of years than I want to think about. And keeping your passion up during that is difficult. That's a really tough call. But passion for doing what you're doing is really key to doing it quickly and well. Protect your passion. Pay attention to what makes you want to stop and work. Pay attention to what makes you want to stop work and walk away from a project, and get in the habit of dealing with those issues as soon as they arise. One reason that you're doing testing, experimentation, and finding the right people to work with is so you can protect your passion, so you can keep wanting to do your very best work. Second, work with passionate people. Protect the passionate people that you work with so they stay in the game with you and stay motivated. Recognize their hard work, recognize their contributions, make sure they get paid as promised. Don't waste their time. And that can mean letting them go when things aren't working out. That really, one of the things about when you have a project and one of you chooses to be the person that owns the project and the other one chooses to be an employee, is that the employer can say, I love you, I think you're very talented, which is why I wanted to work with you on this project, but it's not working out, so I'm going to let you go. And the other guy goes, God, thank you, God, because it wasn't working out, and I want to go on and work on something much more successful. It's nice to let people not have to work with you when things aren't going well and when they're not going to start going well. You have to keep your relationship civil and professional and forward thinking, because that does protect your passion and the passion of the people with whom you're creatively working. Finally, allow yourself to enjoy your work. There are going to be moments in any project where you hate the work and wish you could be doing something else. And the thing is, you can slide through those times when things are going, when things are going great, you revel in the satisfaction that you get from being involved in a project that you really love with people that you really like and admire. And that's really the big payoff when all is said and done. There's a million things that you could do for a living, and some really terrible jobs might pay you really well. Like people used to say to me, I used to work in tech, right? And I used to write technical manuals for a living. So I could get paid pretty well writing technical manuals, and I was really good at it and I was fast at it. And so I could get paid pretty well to do it. But at some point you just go, I have literally not much passion for this. I really don't like doing it. I really do teaching, and I really like supporting creative professionals. I have my own interests from a creative standpoint, books I want to write and video content that I want to create, but I really enjoy teaching, and I really enjoy supporting creative professionals. It's just a joyful thing for me. And so it's not just about the money, it's about being able to do something that you deeply care about. It's having the freedom to be able to do that makes you think, wow, life is pretty great, and I'm lucky to be who I am. So winning is getting to do what you love and getting paid to do it. When that's happening, give yourself a huge pat on the back. It provides really big benefits going forward. And realize projects come, projects go. Don't feel bad that something's not going to last forever, because that is the nature of the business that you're working in. There could be something really great right around the next corner. But when things are going well, encourage yourself. Say, I am just a really wonderful person for having I'm so lucky, and I feel so grateful, and I must be a really wonderful person because look at what I've managed to achieve. Give yourself that moment, because it can sustain you and your passion going forward. These things are important because they keep you strong internally. They keep you resilient. And that's when you lose your passion, when you don't protect your passion by doing all of the things that we've talked about over the course of this presentation, life becomes pretty difficult. I covered a lot of content, and I know if you're watching this particular workshop, given the title, it talked about ways for creative pros earn more money. In my experience, these are the things that make them earn more money. And I hope that you agree with me from a variety of perspectives. I think some of the topics I addressed, you might not have thought of before. Some of them you may have thought of before, but you might have thought about them in a different way. I hope, because I have worked with just a lot of creative professionals, I hope some of the ideas I talked about are immediately applicable to you. I also think the 4 workshops that I provided that support this particular workshop will provide you with very concrete tools that you can use to do the experimentation and the testing and getting little projects out the door that you may find useful. Just to remind you, if you go ahead and click on the webinar chat window, you can find it. There's the one on how to sell creative media in about an hour. That's a very useful tool because it's a whole bunch of very quick, straightforward, fast solutions that you can immediately apply to get something out the door. And if you're a teacher, it's something that you can teach people. There are things there you can teach other people to do that they may find useful. It's interesting how many people that are in my workshops actually provide coaching and support to other people. I like it. And Amazon Kindle Select lets you learn how to publish books, and you may decide to publish fiction, you may decide to publish nonfiction, you may decide to publish kids' books. There's a million different kinds you may decide to publish journals. There's a whole bunch of different kinds of books you can publish. Amazon is useful in that regard. Creating high quality merchandise for free or cheap to support your work. That talks about dozens of companies and services that you can work with that will let you turn an idea into a product that you can sell with no startup costs. Places to sell your short films, videos. People are always talking about, in this town, my God, how many times do people say, I don't know how to get distribution. How do you get distribution? I don't understand distribution. Oh my God, distribution. There's step-by-step instructions for how to get distribution. There's a million different ways to get distribution. Distribution is easy. In fact, the rotten thing about distribution is it's so easy. If you're not careful, your work will literally distribute itself for free on Amazon. The hard part is actually not getting it distributed for free, frankly. All right, I'm going to go ahead and quickly check to see if we have any questions. Cool. So the first question we have is the videos that I posted available for free. They're free if you are a VIP Pro, which most of the people on the call are. It's free all the time going forward, and this workshop will be made available to you in about 48 hours. Check on the video site NFM24. Check that and you will find it. And this video will be there. And all of the other videos that I mentioned are already there waiting for you. If you are not a member, you can go ahead and watch the supporting videos in the next 24 hours. And after that, if you want, I'll hope you decide that you want to become a VIP Pro member. It's $15 a month or less if you want to join for 3 months. It'll cost you less per month. If you have questions, send me an email at nancy@nancyfultonmeetups.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Cool. The next question. That's an interesting question. Where do I find a therapist? It's funny. I wish people ask that question more often. There's sometimes I want to tell people, wow, you really could you'd be happier if you had therapy. What's interesting actually is over the course of the COVID nightmare, we actually ended up with a lot of different ways to get therapy. And I think it's really going to have a massive benefit because it used to be to get a therapist was like a complete nightmare, but there are huge numbers of therapists that are now available online and they're available cost effectively. And a lot of times they're covered by insurance, but even if they're not covered by insurance, you can get high quality care. And I do think if you can meet with your therapist face to face, obviously that's great. But I also think meeting with a therapist online is a good investment. And one of the nice things is you never really have an excuse for missing a meeting. It could be the case that you only work with a therapist for 3, 4 weeks or 6 weeks. You don't have to work with them for a lifetime, but they can get you over a hump. And the coaching that they give you and the insight they can give you into what you're thinking and maybe what you're struggling with can really translate into you taking quantum leaps forward. I have sometimes, sadly enough, the times that we struggle hardest translate into being the things that make us extraordinarily successful going forward. We master skills in those dark hours that translate into a lot of strength and resilience and insight going forward. So it's the sad, poignant secret is that people who have hit hard times in the past and got through them with the help of a good therapist often turn out to be tough and resilient going forward, specifically because they've had experiences that they've gotten through to the other side. It's like the trauma has translated into something that has given them real skill going forward. I would start looking for the online. If you Google online therapy, you can actually find a lot of therapists online. Also, if you don't have health insurance, and I can't believe anybody in this world doesn't right now, make sure that you go to coveredcalifornia.com, because even if you have no money at all, even if you're dirt poor, if you have not a dime to your name, you can get healthcare coverage, because they will put you on, I think it's Medi-Cal, and you will be able to have health insurance, and that health insurance will be good enough to get you into good hospitals, be able to get you coverage, and you don't have to pay anything for it, and it will cover all of your medical costs. So if you're in the state of California, you can get healthcare coverage, and it's very comprehensive. There's no reason not to have healthcare coverage. And when you have healthcare coverage, you can call your doctor and say you want to have a physical, and the physical is important because you want to make sure that you catch any kinds of diseases or illnesses you have early, so you can do something about them quickly. And the reason that's important is the longer you live, the longer you have to be successful, and the better mental health you tend to have, and the more strength and endurance you happen to have from a physical perspective. Your healthcare is a critical asset in your life as a creative professional. I cannot emphasize that strongly enough, and I wish it's something that people who are coaching creative professionals said more often, because it is a matter literally of life and death. Cool. Just go up here and check. Cool. All right. I have very much enjoyed hanging out with you this evening, and I hope that if you have any questions, you'll send me an email at nancy@nancyfultonmeetups.com, because I look forward to hearing from you. I really like knowing that you're moving forward on your work. I like hearing about your projects. There's no reason not to reach out to me. If you don't get a response, feel free to email me 3, 4, 5, 10 times. Sometimes I get tied up. I'm working on a big project right now, so I'm not as attentive to my email as I usually am, but I still care deeply about the work that you do, and I want you to be successful at it. Thank you very much, Robin. Thank you, Bill. Have a nice evening.